Every year, Ox Street in Abingdon goes from looking like this, a standard suburban street, to this, a pandemonium of flashing lights, loud music and fast rides. This, of course, is Abingdon Street Fair, the UK's longest street fair. In this documentary, we're going to take a trip down this street fair's history, going from a 14th century hiring fair to evolving into a Victorian steam street fair, and its current life as a modern fun fair. We'll even be speaking to some of the showmen who've been presenting amusements at Abingdon for years. So, without further ado, my name is Tom Hutz, and welcome to the history of Abingdon Fair. The story begins in the start of the 14th century. There was a shortage of labour due to the horrific Black Death pandemic in the 13th century. So able-bodied men were required by law to travel to hiring fairs throughout the country. One of these hiring fairs was Abingdon, where a majority of farm labourers travelled to find work, as most work contracts ran from October to October. It wasn't just farm hands who came looking for work. There was also a variety of workers from shepherds, roof thatchers, carpenters, and there were even workers who had no specific trade, who were seeking for any work they could get. These workers would usually wear something to indicate the trade. For example, a shepherd would wear a piece of wool, a piece of straw for a roof thatcher, and those who had no specialised trade would carry a mop head. This is why a lot of fun fairs, towards the end of the year, are actually called mop fairs. As the hiring fairs grew and more people attended, the idea came along that these people needed entertainment. To start with, entertainment was basic, with street performers, side stalls, small games that people could play, and food vendors. There was also some small roundabout rides, and these are mainly human-powered roundabouts, and this wouldn't change until the late 18th century. Abingdon has quite a few claims to fame, the home of the MG and the oldest town in Britain, just to name a few. We also claim to have the longest street fair in the UK. Abingdon Street Fair stretches from the top of Ox Street all the way down to the Market Square. This measures out a whopping 1.5 miles long. Originally though, the hiring fair would have just been centred in the Market Square, but it just shows how much it's expanded due to its popularity over the years. Now, if you're from Abingdon, I'm sure you know that the date is one of the most debated subjects of the fair every year, and whoever you ask will probably tell you a different way of figuring it out. Now, the most simple way to remember the date is the Monday before the 11th of October. Now, the reasoning for this date isn't just a random decision. This is the fair can be as close to St. Michaelmas Day, which is always on the 29th of September. St. Michaelmas Day is a Christian festival which marks the end of the productive season and the beginning of a new cycle for farming. You can see how that links in with the farm workers seeking new work for a new season. This is how Abingdon Fair's proper name is Abingdon St. Michaelmas Fair. And the religious part of the fair is still not gone. Every Sunday they open the fair with a religious service on the gallows at the bottom of the marketplace. Now, the fun fairs changed over time, and the employment side of the fair was slowly phased out and replaced by the grand steam-powered fun fairs of the late 18th century. One of the first steam-powered rides was presented by showman Thomas Bradshaw. It was a merry-go-round with a steam engine in the centre to power it. Over the years, more showmen adopted steam for their rides, and new rides were invented, like the steam yachts. As well as the new rides, more sideshows popped up, but it was a common sight at the fairgrounds to see sights like freak shows, stunt performers, wild animals, boxing, and even stage musical spectaculars. And there was a great painting by Charles Ernest Gundel of Abingdon Fair in 1927, roughly where we are, in the glorious steam. I'll put it on the screen now. I love this painting, it really shows how popular the fair is. You can see all the chimneys coming off the steam-powered rides. And the steam fair of Abingdon must have been truly amazing to see. The smell of all the steam engines, the aroma of all the food being cooked, and the sheer amount of people would have been an amazing sight to see at the time. The Victorian era was the golden era for fun fairs. There were so many technological advancements, new style of rides, like the swing chairs and switchback rides, to new equipment like the grand showman's engines. These helped transport the large loads from different fairgrounds, and they also generated power for the rides with a large dynamo at the front of the engine. These are absolutely beautiful engines, and I highly recommend you try and see one. And one of the best places I can recommend if you want to see some of the steam rides at the time is Carter's Steam Fair. Now they mainly travel across Berkshire and London areas, and everything is traditional. There's no major modern rides. Again, I highly recommend it. I'll put a link to their website below of all their touring dates for the next year. Yeah. Abingdon Fair still went on throughout World War One, but it would have been a lot smaller as a lot of showmen volunteered to fight. And then later on during World War Two, due to the threat from bombing, it was deemed the fairs were too unsafe, and the fair was cancelled from 1939 to 1945. But I have read that there was one small stall set up on the square to keep the chatter going. And again, during World War II, a lot of showmen volunteered to fight. Also, a group of showmen raised enough money to buy a Spitfire called the Fun of the Fair. Here's a photo of the Spitfire on screen now. If you're interested in showmen during World War I or II, there's a fantastic book if you want to learn more. It's called Fairgrounds at War. I'll put a link to a place where you can buy it below. Now on screen now is a photo from 1934, years before the Second World War. I love this photo because you can still see all the steam pipes coming out the rides, and you can just about see some of the living wagons behind the rides. The other thing I love about this photo is you can actually see how much Ox Street has changed. It's now not as wide, and a lot of the original buildings have been completely demolished. Sadly though, after the wars, the steam fair soon came to an end, and the electric evolution began. Steam-powered rides fell out of love, and the new rides powered by diesel generators mounted on the same lorries that pulled the rides took over. And new faster rides came to existence, like the Waltzer and Dodgems. You can see the instant difference in these two photos, one from the 1950s. In both these photos, you can no longer see any chimneys from steam engines. Instead, these rides and stalls are powered by those generators tucked into the background. And that is how we have got to the rides you see today. And these rides still haven't stopped evolving. The size of some of the new rides that have come out over the last couple of years, they are huge mechanical masterpieces, and they're just going to get bigger, better and faster. Yeah. And that really is how we have got to where we are today.
Yeah.
Abingdon Fair is such an amazing event, and it is mainly loved by a majority of the town. Now there is a few naysayers and people calling it to be moved, some even want it cancelled. I think it's such a major part of Abingdon's history it should carry on forever. It's a great way for the town to get together, bring business to the town, and meet all of our friends that we might not have seen all year. For a lot of residents of the town, this fair marks the start of the winter. It's also a great attraction for the town. Every year, hundreds of people come to it from all parts of the country. I saw a great story that John Enoch, the coal merchant, used to charge people to store their bikes in his coal yard. Now, in the early steam fair years, bikes are the main method to get into the town, so he should have made a tidy profit. I also love the pull-on day of Abingdon Fair. It's rainy at the moment. Everyone is usually come out in full force just to see the fair pull on. You really get a sense of excitement in the air from everyone here. And there we are, a short history of Abingdon Fair. I hope you enjoyed this look into the Abingdon Fair and the fun fair history in general. As always, if you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up down below. And if you're new to the channel, please feel free to subscribe. We hope to bring you more content soon. Again, thanks for watching Abingdon Uncovered. See you soon.